Grade 12 Economics. Good afternoon. My name is Mr. Mhlonga, and I'm back here with you today on Economics lesson. Remember, this lesson is brought to you by Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saibono Discovery. So today we continue with economic pursuits. Under economic pursuits, we are covering regional development. Some of you call it industrial development. So what is the main focus there? The main focus will be on policies for regional development, approaches for regional development and industrial development, by the way, the objectives, South African endeavors, best practices of regional development, and the incentive to promote industrial development. So this lesson is a part of our economic pursuit. Under pursuit, remember, it's our paper 1. In paper 1, it can be in question 1, section A, question 3, a part of question 4, and question 6. So please join me and see what I have for you in the pocket. So these are the lesson objectives that will be achieved during the course of this lesson. After this lesson, you will be able to do the following. Number 1, you will be able to mention and discuss South African industrial development policies. We have 2 of them. And then also you will be able to mention and discuss approaches to industrial development. We have 2 of them again that will be discussed. Then you will be able to define and briefly discuss objectives of regional development. Then the lesson will also equip you on being able to discuss in detail South African endeavors or approaches to regional development. This is an essay. Then you will also be able to list and briefly discuss best practices of regional benchmark. And then the last one, you will then be able also to mention and briefly discuss incentives by South African government to promote industrial development. These are the main objectives and they will be achieved during the course of this lesson. It is believed that we are already informed about the following content. Firstly, economic growth and development. Number 2, policies of economic growth and development. Remember, we covered them on our previous lesson. So it's a continuity. This is the board of our lesson. We are dealing with policies of regional development, approaches of industrial development, objectives of regional development, and South African endeavors, the best practices of regional benchmark, and incentives. So, on this topic, I know it's normally hectic for you, but I will try to simplify it so that you can try to enjoy it, because questions from this topic are easy. It's just that when we get to these topics, especially as educators together with learners, we rush to complete syllabus. So we talk about regional development, or one can say it's an industrial development. Then the question is, why are we actually talking about our industrial development together with regional development? Remember, we're dealing with economic pursuits. One of the problems we are having in South Africa is that our industries are unable to grow effectively. They are not competitive in the global market. So that's one of the reasons why we have industrial development as well as regional development. Our industries are unable to develop easily. Our economy is not able to attract the foreign direct investments. And our industries remain as infants. They are unable to grow effectively and compete openly in the global market. For that reason, the state intervenes by bringing some approaches and then also some policies with the aim of promoting industrial development. The state also intervened by ensuring that there are some incentives given to support industrial development in South Africa. What is another challenge? Another challenge we have in the country is that our country is characterized as a dual economy. What do we mean by that? Our economy is having 2 segments. The first one, some areas or some part of South Africa are well developed, but some parts of South Africa are not and underdeveloped at the same time. So for that reason, the government had to intervene and instill what we call a regional development, having to improve economic livelihood of areas that are neglected or underdeveloped, so that there will be improvement in economic growth of those regions, employment opportunities, reduce inequalities, etc. So the problem then could be combated if we are able to deal with the issue of having the dual economy. We have a dual economy. There are areas in the country that are underdeveloped in a way that there's a high level of poverty, high level of crime, lower living standards, high level of unemployment in those areas. So then the state had to intervene and initiate the approach or the strategy to ensure that there is what we call a regional development. Specific areas in our country are developed, specific regions in our provinces are developed so that there can be reduction of economic inequalities as well as having imbalances of the past. Now the question is, how is the government willing to intervene, or how is the government intervening to ensure that we have effective industrial development and regional development in South Africa? The state intervened by establishing regional development policies. We talk about EPAP, we talk about National Industrial Policy Framework, and then also the state intervened by implementing or establishing what we call two industrial development strategies. One of them is IMS, which is Industrial Manufacturing Strategy. So those strategies and policies are there to enforce the industrial development in South Africa, having some key objectives and key areas to focus on to improve our industrial development in the country. And then, what is meant by industrial development? If we talk about the industrial development, we are all about policies that are put by the government in place to expand existing businesses and enforce establishment of new industries in the country. So there are two ways or two things that the focus is on here. Establishing the new industries in the country and also focusing on expanding those existing industries. And then we have regions that are underdeveloped. So we have regions that are also developed. So what should be done? The state intervened by regional development. By regional development, that's when the government intervened provincially to do what? To improve economic livelihood of areas that are neglected, where there's a higher level of maybe poverty, unemployment, or when those areas are disadvantaged, then there will be regional development taking place in those areas to improve the economic livelihood in those areas. But then, how is the government doing to ensure that that is highly achievable? There are some South African endeavors or South African approaches to regional and industrial development. We talk about industrial development zones, IDZs. That's when the state intervened by improving infrastructure in areas so that that infrastructure can be able to attract businesses to invest in those areas. Those are IDZ, industrial development zones. So the state intervenes by improving the key and world-class infrastructure in the area. And in that zone, the zone will be developed in a way that it can easily attract more businesses, local businesses and FDIs to come and invest in that particular area. What is most attractive in those areas? There's a world-class infrastructure that allows even the business to mobilize goods from one point to another, from one country to another, from one region to another. That's an IDZ. There are also some incentives given by the government to support those businesses that are investing in those zones. If we talk about incentive in there, I simply remember the duty-free incentive, duty-free import areas. Whenever businesses are importing raw materials and machinery to be used in those zones, they import them freely without having to pay import tariffs. So that attract businesses to come and invest in those areas. And then we also have special economic zones, SEZ. So if we talk about special economic zones, we mainly refer to areas or places that are set aside by the government to perform specific economic activities. So the question is why? We have such because the government is trying to ensure that there is economic diversity, to ensure that even small businesses such as SMMEs are able to participate in our economy. They are given an opportunity to function and participate in the economy, so that there will be variety of goods and services being made available in the country, avoiding to depend on one economic sector, but depending on variety of sectors or all economic sectors in the economy, so that there will be a growth of industries. If we talk about SEZ, remember, this one allows the growth of small businesses in the country. If businesses are small businesses now or infants, we believe that in the future there might be even multinational industries as they are given a chance to grow. So what mostly attracts businesses to invest in SEZ or special economic zones? There's a variety or there's a wide range of incentives given by the government to those areas and to businesses that are investing in special economic zones. Unlike the ITZ, SEZ is exposed to many incentives that benefit businesses. We talk about subsidies, we talk about tax rebate, tax exemptions, we talk about business intelligence, free advisory services. They are given to those businesses so that they can find themselves comfortable with less cost of doing the business happening. Then they produce more goods and services. And then we have SDI, Special Development Initiatives. The SDIs are mainly focused on improving those areas that are underdeveloped. It refers to the government strategy aiming at improving. It is led by whom? By DTIC and DOT, Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, as well as Department of Transport. So it's an interdepartmental strategy that aims of improving economic activities in areas that are neglected, where there's a high level of unemployment and poverty. That's an SDI, Special Development Initiatives. What is the main focus in there? Their primary focus is to ensure that SDIs are improving infrastructure in those areas. They're improving job creation in those areas. They improve standard of living in those neglected areas. They also promote what we call the triple Ps, the public-private partnerships or private-public partnerships, ensuring that the private sector is able to join forces to work together with the government so that jobs can be done or job can be done in our communities. So people of that particular area will be getting opportunities to be employed. So what normally happens, the SDI, Special Development Initiative, who develops who in there? Special is the area. Initiative is the business. So the business is installed into the area where there's a high level of unemployment and poverty. And as the business is there will be improvement of the infrastructure for that business to function. There will be job opportunities in that particular area. So there will be improvement of living standards in the area. There will even be more economic activities in that particular area. So for that reason, our SDIs are important because they don't focus globally into the entire country, but they develop those areas or those spatial or zones that are highly neglected with high level of poverty, that are highly disadvantaged with less employment opportunities. And then we have corridors. If we talk about the corridor, we mean the passageway or the tract of land that forms the passageway which allows the access from one point to another. If we talk about the corridor, we talk about it. It can be a route that allows a person to move or mobilize goods from one point to another. So our corridors they differ into two. They are corridors within the borders of the country and corridors within to beyond borders of the country. Then we talk about the best practice of regional benchmark. That's when we say to be able to achieve everything we want to achieve under regional development, we need to implement the best practices. We'll talk about them. And then incentives. So the question is, what is meant by industrial development? So it is the establishment of new industries and the expansion of existing industries. If we talk about the regional development, that's when the private sector and the government intervene in the economy by establishing new industries within the country and also ensuring that the existing industries are able to expand or develop within the country. Industrial development policy is any government regulation or law aimed at developing measures to expand industrial operations or encourage investment in the industry. So that can be industrial development policy. We continue with industrial development. So industrial development has the following aims. So it creates job opportunities. Once we have industrial development initiated in the area, there will be job created. People will be getting jobs. There will be lower level of unemployment because people of those regions will be getting jobs if they have relevant skills to function in there. Diversification of the economy. If ever we improve our industries, we don't focus only on primary sector industries. We don't focus only on secondary sector industries. We also don't focus only on tertiary sector. We focus on a variety of industries for all economic sectors so that there will be economic diversity. Increasing exports. Once we have our industries being improved or developed, they tend to have more capacity to produce goods and services. If that is the case, some of the goods will be produced in South Africa and be sold abroad because we then have much capacity to produce. Attracting foreign direct investment. Yes, if ever there are some industrial development approaches in the place, some of them are aiming at ensuring that FDIs or foreign direct investors are attracted to invest in the country through the issue of some incentives that are there to attract them to come into the country. Macroeconomic stability, ensuring that all economic objectives or macroeconomic objectives are easily achievable. For instance, we talk about economic growth. If we have economic growth, we have achieved the objective in there. Full employment can mainly be achieved by having more industries functioning. And then price stability can also be achieved by having more productive capacity, which can lead to prices going down or decreasing if ever there are many firms producing goods and services. And then also economic equity. Now, as much as we don't have the dual economy, we have all areas or all regions treated the same, there will be less economic inequalities because development will be taking place across the country, not only in big cities. That will be reducing economic inequalities. And then also we talk about exchange rate stability. Should we then have more exports going out, there will be more money flowing into the country, which will be paying for our imports. Then BOP can then be improved from deficit to maybe to the surplus. So that's why we are saying we can be able to achieve macroeconomic stability through what we call industrial development. Why are we having industrial development? Creating employment. So accelerate investment that attract job creation in both labor-intensive and capital-intensive industries. So industrial developments are there to ensure that jobs are created, and those jobs should be accommodating both labor-intensive and capital-intensive. Remember, as a grade 12 candidate, you know that if we talk about labor-intensive, that's when firms and industries are using most of human resource to get the job done instead of using machinery. But if we are capital-intensive, machines and equipment are highly used or utilized over labor or human resource to get the job done. This is planned to take place in industrial hubs and underdeveloped areas. If we talk about industrial hubs, remember we talk about areas where there are basically industries that are taking the business in there. Mainly if there are industries or businesses, it's a business zone, it's industrial zone. So those are industrial hubs because what is happening, the only industries or industrial work is taking place. And then also to improve underdeveloped areas. Those areas that are neglected get an opportunity to expand because there will be businesses installed in the area through the support of the government. And those businesses can be able to improve economic activities in those particular areas since people will be employed, earning income, reducing unemployment, creating job opportunities, or then demanding goods and services. Then there will be improvement of economic activities in that particular country. Diversification of the economy. So if we talk about economic diversity, we mean having to expand our economy in a way that it depends on variety of economic and goods and services produced, not mainly on one particular item. So industrial development allows for the establishment of various industries that produce a variety of goods and services from agriculture, mining, fishing, and services sector, not focusing only on primary sector, but also moving from primary to secondary, from secondary to tertiary, all industries taking place in the country. This helps to make the economy less dependent on specific economic sector. So remember, should the country depend on the economic sector, if ever there is a certain natural disaster, or maybe economic slump in that particular industry, that means our economic activities will simply slump also. But if we depend on variety economic sectors, that can simply improve us. Even if agriculture is faced by the challenge, we can also function as a country in other sectors to produce goods and services. And then increase export. So industrial development aimed at increasing South Africa's export base in foreign markets. Industrial development zones and special economic zones offer special incentives to local exporting industries to improve their international competitiveness. Remember, each and every country wants to ensure that it's able to produce goods locally and sell them abroad. Why? That's a main objective. That becomes one of the primary objectives because we need to earn the foreign currencies so that we can be able to pay for our imported goods and services. And it's always the best or always good if ever the money we received as a country as foreign currencies is able to cover for the goods that we are importing from other countries. Otherwise, if that is not the case, we come across the balance of payment deficit, because there will be more money flowing out and less money coming in. Attracting foreign direct investments, or FDI. So FDI has a huge impact on the improvement of domestic economy. Industrial development assists in creating a good platform for foreign direct investment through FIG, which is known as foreign investment grants. So how can we attract the foreign direct investors? We attract them by giving them what we call the foreign investment grants, which are basically given to businesses that are from abroad that are willing to invest in the country. What is the money for? It's for relocating new machines and equipment from that particular country of origin to South Africa. It's normally given in about 15% on the cost price of that particular machinery. Macroeconomic stability. The industrial development plays a major role in achieving macroeconomic objectives such as economic growth, full employment, price stability, exchange rate stability, as well as economic equity. I think I spoke about this one, that if ever we have industrial development that is highly effective, there will be more economic activities. If our industrial development projects are highly in place, there will be full employment. Also, there will be less economic inequalities, because if we improve regions, that means even those that were neglected will be able to participate in the economy, because people will be employed, uplifting them to even be able to earn income and afford their living standard. Also, if ever we have improved industries in the country, we come across more exports flowing out, which will earn us more foreign currencies. So for that reason, our currency can be stable, because we are receiving more currency than having the country currency going out. And then also, we talk about the price stability. Should we have more industries being developed, that can lead to high capacity of goods produced, which can lead to less cost push inflation, then there will be price stability. Industrial development policies. So we have 12 of them. National Industrial Policy Framework, which was formed in 2007. So it was there to diversify economy, to increase exports, and then intensify industrialization in long run. Also, promotion of labor-intensive industries, or industrialization approach, and labor absorption. And then promote economic participation of formerly neglected people, and develop marginalized areas, so that there will be high level of economic activities. Number 2 is Industrial Policy Action Plan, which is IPAP. So remember, if we talk about IPAP, there is IPAP 1, IPAP 2, IPAP 3. So it's been improving. It aimed at improving structural changes in South African economy. If we talk about structural changes, we mean having to be able to structure from maybe labor-intensive industries to the modern technology, from burning of fossil fuel maybe to the green economy. That is those are structural changes that occur in the economy. And then improve industries that are critical for South Africa to succeed. If we talk about the critical industries, we mean industries that are the key. Without them functioning, there will be poor economic activities in the country. For instance, we talk about the energy industry. It's very much critical for the country, because we talk about electricity. Electricity is very important. We cannot function easily without availability of power like electricity. We talk about maybe still on energy industry, we talk about fuel. If ever fuel is not available, the distribution of goods and services might not be available. The generating system cannot function in industries, meaning there will be no productivity taking place. And then also, we talk about communication industry. Our industries or our businesses are more dependent on communication to take place. If ever there is no communication, there are no communication signals, so there will be poor communication, and also business cannot function well without proper communication system taking place in the country. So we talk about transport industry. If we talk about that transport, be aware, we cannot easily function without having availability of transport industry. It's critical, because without the transport, goods cannot be mobilized from one point to another. Without transport, commuting cannot occur. Workers cannot be able to move either from home to work and work to home. So that will create most of difficulties. Address the decline in South African manufacturing capacity. This simply means it is there to ensure, this policy is there to ensure that our manufacturing capacity is improving as a country, so that we can have high level of GDP, reduce unemployment, obviously ensuring that we have reduced unemployment and more job creation, which can either be labor intensive as well as capital intensive. Improve industries focusing on green and energy saving industries and agro processing. So this one simply means industries should be improving in a way that they adapt to the new technology. They move away from the burning of fossil fuel, but they focus on green economy or technology that is eco-friendly, that is not damaging the environment or lead to environmental destruction. And then also energy-saving industries, those industries that are not mainly using much of power, but they can be able to invent to maybe renewable resources instead of using non-renewable resources. Agro-processing, being able to process our agricultural output into final goods so that we can sell those goods abroad as final goods and services instead of selling them as raw material, because the primary sector resources are having less value. As we sell them abroad, we receive less revenues. Then we pay more if we buy them as finished goods from abroad. The strategies. NRDS, National Research and Development Strategy. It focuses on using science and technology to promote and expand industrialization with special focus on biotechnology and information technology. So this one mainly ensuring that South Africa is able to adapt and invest more in the global technology and networking so that business can simply expand easily. Being able to research easily from the global world so that we can be able to see how do they do things, then we can copy and also improve as a country. Focus on improving competitiveness of manufacturing sector. This one is integrated manufacturing strategy. It improves secondary sector and then involves cross-cutting issues by examining factors like infrastructure, technology, and innovation, as well as human resource. So it improves the infrastructure so that we can improve in the secondary sector, improving technology and innovation so we can be able to be innovative and invent. Also improving human resources so that people can be productive or labor force can be more productive in the workplace. Then we move to the regional development. Remember, we said focus on policies aimed at improving economic livelihood of less developed areas on the regions. Those regions that are underdeveloped or neglected, they obtain the special focus from the government so that they can be improved. That's a regional development. Remember, like I mentioned, the country is faced by an issue of dual economy. Some areas of the country are high developed, some areas of the country are underdeveloped. So the government tries to ensure that these imbalances are reduced. This is there to ensure that there's a reduction of what? Of urbanization, because we know the neglection, when our rural areas are neglected, people tend to move from those areas to urban areas for better opportunities. But should there be industrial development policies taking place, industrial development approaches taking place that can lead to expansion of businesses and establishment of new businesses in rural areas, which will lead to people of those areas not moving from rural areas to urban areas. So it will be saving urban areas from being from being overloaded or from having influx of people coming into them, because should people move in large numbers to urban areas, there will be poor service delivery. So there will also be a congestion in those areas. So for that reason, we are saying regional development plays a huge impact on protecting big cities from the influx of people from rural areas, because rural areas will then be given the special attention to grow in their own regions. And then the aim is to close existing gap between big cities and small towns. Like I've mentioned, it reduces the gap that is existing. You know better that if we talk about rural areas, they are highly neglected. There are no industries that are in there. There's a poor economic activity. But if we talk about urban areas, there are high economic activity taking place. There are more industries that are have invested in there. So there's a huge gap. So to improve in regional development, we are trying to close the gap that is existing between big cities and small towns. If government are responsible for developing their regions, economic and social inequalities can be reduced. Yes, that's correct. If ever the provinces can take initiative by improving their own regions, we can come across the benefit of reducing these economic inequalities that are existing. We know that there are some provinces that are regarded as the main provinces in South Africa because they have what we call more opportunities even for people from rural areas. So those provinces are faced by an issue of influx of people. Those provinces are faced by the advantage of high economic activities, but some provinces are having less economic activities. So those gaps can only be closed by what we call the regional development, because some cities can be identified to be developed through specific economic activities. A wide gap in terms of development between cities and rural communities has resulted in massive urbanization, like I've mentioned. If people in rural areas are not getting those opportunities for economy, they go to urban areas. So that is caused by the fact that in neglected areas are rural areas, there are no economic activities. But should there be regional development, there will be even economic activities in those rural areas, which will be pushing people not to move to big cities, because even in their areas, there will be job opportunities created by the government and private sector. What are the aims of regional development? Close existing gap between big cities and the small towns. This has been explained. To prevent new imbalances from emerging. We know that we have an issue. Imbalances of apartheid, yes, they are still existing, but now we have created new imbalances. Our government have focused on improving big cities over what we call rural communities. So now that create a huge gap or more imbalances, because people in rural areas are not getting basic opportunities for them to expand in the economy. But people in big cities are the ones that are getting more opportunities. You talk about the tender system. Mainly it's obtained by people in big cities or towns. Those in small cities are not getting opportunities. If in the small town there is a certain development, maybe of infrastructure, you find the construction people from the bigger cities going there to get the job done. So that simply tells you that even the skills in those areas that are neglected are not highly prioritized. For that reason, the regional development can be there to close the gap and allow people to improve even in rural communities and those neglected areas in South Africa. To utilize labor, natural resources and infrastructure in neglected areas more effectively. We simply know that people of underdeveloped areas or neglected areas are not getting job opportunities. Even if they have skills, they need to move to urban areas for them to get jobs. So they are underutilized. We talk about natural resources, like mining industry mainly is taking place in rural communities, where we have these, what we call it, resources such as diamond, the gold, the coal, etc. So if ever they are not utilized in there, that means there will be less opportunities. But should those resources be utilized, like even forestry, if they can be utilized, that can lead to improvement of economic livelihood in those areas. Infrastructure. We know that infrastructure in rural communities is highly neglected. Those people are not having even the basic infrastructure. Some are not even having clean running water, purified water, no sanitation infrastructure, and then also some are without even electricity. So that simply tells you that we have a challenge. Imbalances remain huge between us as South Africans now because of the development that is not taking place in urban areas but only taking place in rural communities. Even in urban areas, you come across underdeveloped areas that we regard as rural urban communities, because they are neglected. The government only focus on those that are regarded to be economic hubs instead of also developing those people and those areas, in those areas where there's a human settlement only. People need to earn a better living. Without providing them with proper infrastructure, they find themselves disadvantaged and they will never be having their living standard improved. Remember the effect of that. That can lead to angry society. That can lead to social protest and also social instability. To promote development in poor areas, obviously to ensure that those areas that are poor are able to obtain that development which is necessary for their people. Remember, if I talk about the development, I'm talking about having to improve the wellness of those people. They need to ensure that their wellness is improving. They can get jobs, they can get skills, they can be educated, they can be able to function in the economy without being marginalized. They cannot mainly depend on the government for financial aid or financial support through pension fund and relief fund. They can also be able to start their own businesses and be supported by their own local governments to improve their businesses. So that is to promote development in poor areas. So we come across those areas being neglected in a way that their local authorities are not uplifting those people in those areas. There are no businesses taking place. Instead, should there be a business in that community, people are moving from urban areas to rural areas to take those business opportunities because people of the area are not improved. They don't know that they should be running their own business, but instead they decide to be labor or employees. Then we move to South African endeavors to regional development. Here they come. We have Special Development Initiative, SDIs. We have Industrial Development Zones, IDZs. We have Special Economic Initiatives. SEZ, we have corridors. These are 4 South African endeavors or approaches to industrial development or regional development. In your examination, it can come in this fashion. Discuss in detail South African endeavors to regional development. So these are 4 things we have to discuss in detail. They are not difficult for one to do. They are easy. You just have to follow us when we give you the guidance or the guideline. I've spoken about them in summary, so we'll go to details now. Spatial Development Initiative. Now, what is this? Here we talk about the policy. So it's a policy to promote sustainable industrial development in areas where poverty and unemployment are at their highest level. So it's still focused on neglected areas, still on there. So this one is an interdepartmental strategy. If I talk about an interdepartmental strategy, I mean there are 2 departments that are taking that are pushing this initiative to take place. Remember, it's the DOT, which is Department of Transport, and then DTIC, Department of Trade, Industry, and the Competition. What is the main focus? Keep it in your mind. It improve or promote economic activities in areas that are neglected, where there's a high level of unemployment and poverty. This one focuses on that. Even the definition goes there. Anything that will be coming after will be there to ensure that we are able to improve those areas that are neglected. It is an interdepartmental strategy led by Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, DTIC, as well as DOT, which is the Department of Transport. Then we call it an interdepartmental strategy. The Spatial Development Initiative, SDIs, to attract what we call infrastructure and investments to underdeveloped areas. So it is there to ensure that there's an improvement of infrastructure and development in those areas that are highly neglected. So it improves infrastructure development. We talk about mainly the road or transport infrastructure, basically. When they install, tar roads in those areas, that's a part of improvement, because it allows the movement of goods to be channeled from one point to another more conveniently. The main objective is to stimulate economic growth and employment opportunities in those regions. So it improves economic growth in those regions, meaning improving economic activities in those regions and employment opportunities. But the question is, how does that happen? Remember, there will be the government intervening to support businesses that are relocating from urban areas to rural areas. As those businesses are moving or relocating to neglected areas, they will be getting the special incentives or support from the government so that they can function easily. Some of them are even given the tax rebates or incentives so that they can be able to function without having high cost of doing the business. So for that reason, what happens then if that is the case? If these businesses are highly supported by the government, they can then be able to create job opportunities for those people of the community. And then there will be improvement of economic activities, because as those people are employed, they earn income, they can demand goods, others can even be able to start their own businesses in those areas. So it can result to even economic growth as well as the creation of job opportunities. We continue. So this program makes provision for the public-private partnerships. So meaning it allows more connection, or maybe it allows private sector and public sector to join forces and work together to improve the economy. Like I've mentioned, that the private sector might be willing to relocate to neglected areas. Then how does the government fit? The government intervenes by improving infrastructure for that particular business. The government intervenes by providing some incentives and benefit to that particular business so that it can be attracted to work in that particular community. So Triple P is to take advantage of economic potential and of underdeveloped areas. We know that some areas that are underdeveloped are having very much important economic opportunities that are there. If ever there can be an industry in there, there can be more functionality. So you find that in the area we have a mineral that is available, but if there is no industry that is willing to invest there under primary sector, then there will be no economic opportunity taking place, because that potential of economic activities will only be pursued only if there are businesses that are willing to invest in the area. Public-private partnership or triple P's refer to projects where the state provides the infrastructure and private sector provides capital to establish business venture. So if we talk about triple P, that's when the state intervened by providing infrastructure. The state intervened by providing also the financial resources. Then what does the private sector do? The private sector comes with its services and the capital to get the job done. So that's what, when we talk about even the tendership taking place, where the government give companies that are qualifying through procurement, they get those tenders to improve a certain infrastructure in some specific areas in our regions. Then we have corridors. If we talk about the corridor, we talk about the tract of land that forms a passageway to allow the movement of goods and services from one point to another. So corridors are mainly for transport system in the country. So refer to tract of land that allows access from one point to another. For goods to move from one point to another, there must be some specific corridors in place in the country. Corridors in South Africa are special areas that offer specific advantage to mining, manufacturing, and other businesses. So the mining sector, remember, there's a transportation of goods in there. There's a transportation of minerals in there from one point to another. Manufacturing sector, after producing goods, goods are moved from one point to another. Even other businesses also benefit through availability of corridors. The advantages also include the presence of existing infrastructure and the specialization of products or services. So it allows what we call firms to specialize on some product because they know that they have better routes or network connection to move goods from one point to another. These corridors are development areas within South Africa and are the development priorities of all development agencies. They are very important because they are the part of development in South Africa, as they can connect provinces from one province to another. They can also connect one country to another. They are important. The DTIC, which Department of Trade, Industry and Competition provides, help to support in support of development corridors, e.g. the Maputo Development Corridor that starts in Gauteng and extends through Mpumalanga to the Maputo port, offers opportunity to the transport industry. So the transport industry find it easy to function now because we are connecting province to province and also a country to country through what? Through corridors. The types of corridors. So we have corridors within the borders of the country and corridors beyond the borders of the country. So corridors within are those that are channeled within the country on its own. From province to another, those are corridors within the country. But corridors beyond the country or beyond borders of the country, that's when it moves from one province to another and connect to another country, like the Maputo Development Corridor. It's a part of what we call corridors beyond borders of the country because they connect South Africa to other world countries. Then we continue corridors and SDIs. SDIs and corridors with their focus. KwaZulu-Natal SDI is industrial, Wild Coast SDI is agri-tourism, and then Fish River SDI is industrial, West Coast Investment Initiative industrial and agri-processing. Coast-to-coast corridor is for transport and tourism. So if the examiner can say, mention 2 examples of corridors, you know what to do. We continue. Platinum SDI, mining and agri-tourism. Paraporo SDI, industrial and agri-tourism. Maputo Development Corridor, industrial and agri-processing. Lubombo SDI, agri-tourism. Richards Bay Initiative, mining, industrial and agri-processing. These are corridors and SDIs that are in place in South Africa. Then SDIs and corridors continue. So here they are now listed in this fashion. Maputo Development Corridor, Lubombo Corridor, Richards Bay SDI, Wild Coast SDI, Fish River SDI, West Coast Investment SDI, Platinum SDI, Palaporo, and Coast to Coast Corridor. So if they can say mention any 2 examples of corridors, you know what to do. Any 2 examples of SDIs in South Africa, you know what to do. Then IDZ, Industrial Development Zones. Then I will have a simple question here. Industrial Development Zones. Who develops who here? Are industries developing the zones or zones are developing industries. Yes, zones are developing industries, but the question is how. There will be a world-class infrastructure in that particular area or zone that will be allowing businesses to be able to produce goods and transport them from one country to another, from one province to another. There's a proper technology being made available as a part of attraction to those businesses. So should the zone be highly developed with the proper infrastructure, then what is going to happen? Industries will be benefiting. They will develop easily because they have access to many business opportunities. They have access to many facilities that are installed only in this area than being installed around the country. It is only installed only in this area. You find that in one province, there is only one ITZ. So that means that ITZ will be attracting more economic opportunities for goods to be produced and sold abroad, not only be sold in South Africa, but to be sold abroad or into the global market. So in this fashion, the zone develops the industry. Keep that in your mind. The zone develops the industry. So the zone will be improved through infrastructure or the world-class infrastructure, which improve the transport infrastructure. There will be harbors, there will be airports. So those there will be cougars. That infrastructure is very important because it simply attracts those that are willing to produce goods locally and sell them abroad. So for that reason, the zone will be improved in a way that businesses or industries will be attracted to come and invest here for their growth. And then as businesses are investing here, they will be able to grow because the zone is rich, is highly developed, offers even some incentives that reduce the cost of doing the business for these industries. So they will then be able to grow. Remember, as they produce these goods, where are they selling these goods? These goods that are produced here are sold abroad. So these goods are sold abroad. They are not sold locally, they are sold abroad. So this means these businesses or these industries will then be getting the foreign currencies through investing in ITZs. I believe you get me. So as we have this situation, how do they benefit? They will be benefiting through having to export their goods into the global market. How will our economy benefit? Our economy will be export orientated. Remember, if ever there is much capacity of goods available in the country produced in these ITZs or these zones, what will happen? Goods will be sold abroad and we will be earning more currency from abroad to pay for imports. That is the benefit. And our economy will be export orientated. If you have export-oriented economic growth, that means you are highly balanced. Your firms are competitive. So these industries become competitive in the global market. They become highly competitive in the global market for the fact that they were investing in these zones. Remember, we attract FDIs also, the foreign direct investments. So as we attract them to be in this area, the FDIs, what will happen? These businesses will be creating the sound of job opportunities in South Africa. There will be more job creation in the country. As there's more job opportunities, our economy is also benefiting because there will be more income and more economic growth together with economic activities. So ITZs are important in the country, but keep it in your mind that the zones are developing the industries. Industries will be attracted by the proper infrastructure available in these zones, which is known to be the world-class infrastructure. As this infrastructure is available, attract businesses to invest in these areas. As they invest here, their investment will lead to the production of more goods and services, creation of job opportunities, improvement further of the infrastructure development. Then also economic growth will be taking place. And then our economy can be export oriented because these goods that are produced here are then produced to be sold abroad. As they are sold abroad, then we earn the foreign currency, which will be improving our economy. And these firms become globally competitive because now they are given such incentive that allow them to function properly in our economy. So they don't only function to produce for the local economy. Their main function is to produce for the global economy. I hope you understood. So let's go through the content. Industrial development zones. So ITZs are purposely built industrial estates which are physically enclosed to seaports or airports. They are purposely built industrial estates that are physically enclosed or linked to international airports or the seaports. So now you will get to understand that if you talk about ITZs, those are zones. that are very much close to airports and seaports. Now, I spoke about the world-class infrastructure. If I talk about the world-class infrastructure, I mean having those airports nearby that area, ITZ, having those seaports nearby that area, having the Kruger, having the harbor. That is very important because it allows for the movement of goods either from one point to another, from one country to another. That's why they function to attract exporters, to attract FDIs, because if we want to sell abroad, we must have the better and improved transport system nearby the area, nearby the zone. Then we say ITZ are having the world-class infrastructure. We mean that infrastructure I've just mentioned, like the Kruger, the harbor, the airports are there. For that reason, then those people will produce in that area and easily export their goods into the global market without high cost of doing the business. Businesses are encouraged to open ITZ by being offered improved tax rates or incentives. So what encourages businesses to invest in these ITZs? They are given what we call tax exemptions or tax rebate, or some incentives like duty-free incentive that allow them to import some goods and services like capital goods without having to pay tariffs. Foreign investment grants that allows those importers to bring their capital or machinery at the lower cost because they're given that grant, which is a certain amount of money that can be up to 15% of the cost price for that particular machinery that is moved from one country to another. Characteristics of industrial development zones or IDZ. Remember, these are found also in our definition. They are purposely built industrial estate. Then it's not by coincidence. They are built for a certain reason, because that area is assigned as industrial hub only for economic activities. In IDZs, there is no human settlement. People are not staying there. It's only industrial area. So only industries are allowed to take, or industrial activities are allowed to take place in those zones. People don't stay there. That's when we talk about ITZs. So that's why we say they are purposely built industrial estate. We call them industrial estate because only industries or industrial activities take place in these areas. They are physically enclosed. So they are very close to businesses. They are these zones are very close to businesses, to ports, which can be seaports and airports. They are strategically linked to harbor or airports. Harbors are very close to those areas to allow movement of goods. Airports are very close in there. And then they are in duty-free import areas. What do we mean by that? We mean if businesses are investing in there, they will be importing their capital goods or machinery or raw material freely without having to pay import tariffs. You understand? So in that situation, they are placed in duty-free import areas. Remember, if we talk about import duty, we talk about import taxes, we talk about regulations on importation, where one either is paying or not paying. So duty-free, there is no payment for import tariffs or excise duties for importing goods that are capital goods or maybe machinery or natural resources to be used to produce goods in these zones only. What are the aims of ITZ? Attract new investment in export-driven industries. So if we talk about export-driven industries, export-driven industries, we mean industries that mainly produce to export, not mainly to sell locally. Encourage economic growth by attracting the FDIs. Yes, having to encourage economic growth by ensuring that there are more foreign direct investments in the country that have invested in those areas. Remember, how are FDIs attracted by what we call the ITZs? They are attracted by the duty-free incentives, also attracted by the foreign investment grants, which allows them to bring their capital goods or machinery through the discount of 15%, through the grant of 15% given to them. They are allowed to bring capital goods or machines or raw material freely without paying import tariffs. So that attract them to come and invest in the country. And hence the competitiveness of local industries. So our local industries that are willing to export and sell their goods abroad are also invited to invest in ITZs So they become more competitive because as they receive these incentives, they get a chance also to export their goods into the global market, which makes them to be more competitive because they tend to compete with highly developed industries abroad, which improve their capabilities and their efficiency. Promote export. Obviously, if ever ITZ are there to attract exporters, it will be promoting exports. Promote job creation. Obviously, in those areas, there will be more job opportunities created and then people will be employed. Promote and develop links between domestic and zone-based industries and then enable exploitation of resource-intensive industries, allowing businesses to exploit or make use of their own resources that are available around there. Exploit them so that they can be processed into finished goods and be sold into the global market. Opportunities offered by industrial development zones. What is available there? So a good and basic infrastructure. So infrastructure that is there, we call it a world-class infrastructure. It's highly developed. You can't regret investing in there because the infrastructure is available. It's a world-class infrastructure allowing you to connect easily because there are some incentives based on technology and research which are given by the government freely to those businesses to see new innovations that are taking place across the world. Then they can be able to adopt them and use them in those zones. Dedicated custom support services to make excise inspection and clearing more efficient. Duty-free import of raw material and input to reduce their production cost. Remember, if we talk about input, we talk about capital goods or factors of production. Then they are brought in freely without having to pay any tariffs. A zero rate of VAT on supplies produced from South African sources. So there's a VAT free, so meaning they don't pay VAT for goods produced from South Africa sources. Import status for finished goods sold into South Africa. Government incentive schemes. So government intervened by providing some incentive schemes such as can be tax rebate, tax exemption, etc. Reduction of taxation or exemption for some activities and products. Access to latest information technology. And then global communication. So these are some businesses, some benefits that are enjoyed by industries that are investing in ITZ. Then industrial development zones in South Africa. Then let's check them. We have a KUKA, which deal with the steel and auto components. It is in Port Elizabeth. OR Tambo International Airport, which deals with high-tech industries. We have East London, which deal with automotive and vehicles. We have Saldanha Bay, which deal with the steel. We have Richards Bay Metal, which deal with the metals. We have Mahikeng, which deals with agro processing. These are the ITZ that are currently in place in South Africa. How can it be asked in the lower order? They can say, mention any 2 examples of ITZ currently in place in South Africa. Be able to mention them. These are industrial development zones examples in the country. Like we are now in Gauteng, we know there is one that we have, which is known as OR Tambo International Airport, which is dealing with what we call the high-tech industries. And then in East London, we have automotive industry. And then we have Saldanha Bay also, which deal with the steel. Then we have in KwaZulu-Natal, Richards Bay, which deal with the metals. And then we have Mahikeng, which deal with agro processing. And then KUKA, which deal with what we call the steel in Port Elizabeth and automotive components. These are examples of ITZ currently in place in South Africa. We continue. What are the challenges of ITZ in the country? So you must be able to answer the question. Examiner can ask you to say, briefly discuss challenges or shortcomings faced by ITZ in South Africa. Previously, we spoke about the benefits of ITZ. Now we have challenges or shortcomings in ability to attract more foreign investors. So there's a challenge. Our ITZs are unable to attract more FDIs to come into the country and invest. What might be a reason? Maybe because of more government intervention into the economy. The government has too much intervention in the market, which make the foreign business not to be interested on investing in South African economy. Also, economic instability. You find that our economy is not very much stable. So for that reason, investors might find themselves not guaranteeing their benefits in South African economy. Then they withdraw or not be willing to invest in the country's economy. Maybe also we have an issue of maybe improper government policies. They also become a challenge, because if government sets some policies that regulate businesses the most, some businesses are not willing to be fully controlled by the government. The absence of special incentives for zone investors make them unattractive to investors. There are less incentives that are available in these ITZs. We have duty-free incentives, we have FIGs. Then, unlike SEZ, in SEZ there are more incentive, but here we have less benefits that are given. Restricted to international port or airport, it cannot be found everywhere. So the challenge also, ITZs are only found nearby seaports and airports. They cannot be found anywhere where there is no such infrastructure. That becomes a challenge or shortcoming for businesses, because you find that they discover their business opportunity is somewhere else where there is no ITZ. Then they cannot invest, because obviously their resource is mainly based somewhere else where there is no ITZ. So they want to invest anywhere. So if ITZs are still limited to seaports and airports, then foreign investors cannot be able to invest in the country. Small business and larger business for South Africa cannot easily invest, because some of them find themselves having business opportunities somewhere else where there is no ITZ. Now they are forced to invest nearby, in these ITZs, which will be difficult for them to function, because their main resource is far away from the ITZ. Focused on exports only. So, meaning it does not really attract those that are willing to produce for the domestic economy. It attracts those that are willing to produce for foreign economies, those that are willing to produce their goods here and sell them abroad. So some businesses are not interested on exporting their goods to foreign countries. They're interested on domestic market. So they find themselves neglected, because they are not given an opportunity through these ITZs. Lack of supporting industries, skills, and infrastructure. Then the infrastructure is only limited to these zones. Moving away from these zones, there is no proper and enough infrastructure. It becomes difficult, because the business environment can have more resources here, but we need to distribute goods to other places. We need to have branches. How do we have branches somewhere else if ever we are only allowed to invest nearby these zones? Other zones are not having this luxury of infrastructure. It becomes a challenge. We continue shortcomings in ability to create more sustainable employment opportunities. They are unable to create more job opportunities. Exclusive government ownership and management with no private sector involvement, which differs from international practice. So you find that mainly government functions in there. Businesses that are taking place in there are owned or ruled or administered by the government, which then is again by the best practice of regional benchmark. Absence of comprehensive framework and strategic planning and the guidance. So businesses that are willing to invest in there, they are not highly guided in there. So there is no proper planning on how they can be attracted, and there is no proper guidance to those businesses that are willing to invest in those areas. There is no enough information available for them to be attracted in there. The operation cost of running this substantial ITZ cannot be covered by a rental income. Then we move to the fourth one, special economic zones, SEZ. So in this one, we mean a geographical area that has been set aside or selected by the government to perform specific economic activities. It's been set aside, have been put to say this area will be used to do this and that. There are areas where specific economic activities have been identified to be developed. Some economic activities have been identified to take place in those particular areas. We call those the special economic zones. These areas may enjoy incentives such as tax relief and support system to promote industrial development. So here under SEZ, there are many incentives that are in place. There are so many incentives that are given by the government in there. Unlike in the ITZ, ITZ have a limited scope, while SEZ is believed to be the expansion of existing ITZs because it expands further than ITZ and give more opportunities even to smaller businesses, even to those that are not willing to invest and produce to the global market. Those that are willing to invest and produce for local market, they are also allowed to invest in what we call the special economic zones. The other thing that is good here is that SEZ can be found anywhere in the country, not close, not mainly nearby seaports or airports, but they can be located anywhere. But ITZs are only located nearby seaports and airports. It creates a basis for the broader range of industrial parks and provides economic infrastructure to enable the effective clustering of value-adding and employment-enhancing manufacturers. So these SEZs really, they create a variety of industries that can take place in those zones, which can simply allow even more job opportunities taking place. There can be even more manufacturing taking place in those areas, because there are no restrictions to say only those that are exporters can function here. Everyone is given an opportunity. Even SMMEs are given an opportunity to function here. Then that can lead to economic diversity. What are the aims of SEZ? Promote rapid development by acting as a magnet for investment in key growth areas. If we talk about key growth areas, we refer to areas where there's an opportunity for high economic activities, areas where there are more resources available for economic activity to take place. So it attracts businesses to invest in those areas. So that's why we call them key growth areas. There can be effective growth if ever there can be business opportunities being provided to those areas. Enable the development of new industrial regions through the establishment of new industrial hubs in underdeveloped regions and the strengthening existing ones. So it allows the development of industrial regions. So there will be high development, there will be more industries established in some regions for some economic activities to take place, and those that are existing will be expanding because of special economic zones, because SEZ provides some opportunities of infrastructure, provide incentives, so that lowers the cost of doing the business for those businesses, and then they find themselves doing very well and be more effective. SEZs are used for purposes such as export promotion, enterprise development, urban renewal, rural development, and domestic original production. So if we talk about SEZ, some businesses there are producing goods to be sold abroad through export promotion. Then SEZ also develop some enterprise that are already existing, but they're still infants, so that they can grow, give them an opportunity and allow them to have a stake in the market. And then urban renewal. If we bring SEZs, the urban areas can be able to be innovated again with new strategies in place to improve economic activities. Rural development. Communities that are neglected find an opportunity to develop because of these SEZs, which provide variety of opportunities for all surroundings, even small businesses. Domestic original production. We tend to produce goods and service in our own regions and sell it in our own regions. We can improve our economic activities within our own regions because we have our own establishments as a region. So the benefit of SEZs in the economy, the economic benefit by attracting new businesses investment through tax incentives. So there are some tax incentives that are given there, like tax rebate, tax exemptions. Some of them do not even, like exemption, they don't even pay tax because they earn less income. So they're attracted to invest in these zones because really they don't pay tax due to the level of income or gross income they earn per annum. Assisting businesses that establish new product lines and expand their operations. So there's the creation of network, allowing them to have a stake in the market, those businesses that are establishing the new line of products. So they tend to be attracted, they tend to develop because they get support from the local governances in the through these ITZs. Creating more employment for people in the neighborhood. People of the area will be employed because there will be economic activities or economic opportunities that will be granted in the area. Increasing productivity and economic growth. Obviously, there will be more productivity in our zone because of what we call a special economic zone. There will be more even GDP. Promoting more effective use of resources. Resources will be exploited. Resources will be used. There will be transformation of natural resources to final goods and services. They won't be underutilized because there will be business opportunity created by what we call the special economic zone in that particular area. Focusing on both domestic production and export. It doesn't select, it doesn't choose. of people of its own. That's when we say investment in human capital. People must be developed, people must be trained through education and training within the region. The region must take initiative to develop those people so that they become productive citizens, so that they become innovators and inventors of the regions, of our region. So that's why we say there must be investment in human capital. Region must develop their people's skills to utilize them when opportunities arise. So that's when we talk about investment in human and social capital, integration. So here we say the benefit of one region should be able to spill over to another region. If our region is doing well, it should be able to maybe assist another region of the opposite on how it's doing so that they can also improve through our support. So that's an integration. We integrate, we work together, we support each other as regions. That's an integration, because after all, the intention is to improve regions, provinces, as well as the country as a whole. Partnerships. Here we say the triple P's, public-private partnerships, should be developed between NGOs, civil societies, as well as the government. So it must be created, they must be able to work together in the expansion or in the improvement of regions or in industries, as well as development in our communities. There must be public-private partnership being created in the regions where the government works together with other stakeholders that are not the part of the government. And then also, I think we have the last one, which is not here, which is decentralization. And then we move to assessment. So here, lower order assessment, name two aspects of regional industrial development policy. Two aspects include Special Development Initiative, SDI, Special Economic Zones, that is for 2 marks. Mention two industrial development strategies used in South Africa. Remember, if we say mention two, that means there are only two. But if we say mention any two, that means there are more than two. So keep that in your mind. And then this 2 times 1 means something. You must know more about this. To say there are 2 answers, each answer is 1 mark, then populate for 2 marks. And then mention two industrial development strategies in South Africa. It's NRDS, National Research Development Strategy, and then Integrated Manufacturing Strategy. There are only 2. Remember, from mentioning, you must be able to briefly discuss objectives of National Research and Development Strategy. You must know also objective of Integrated Manufacturing Strategy. Middle order. How can the competitiveness of businesses influence regional development? If ever our businesses are becoming more competitive, how can that influence regional development? More established businesses can lead to greater economic development. A greater variety of goods and services will be available within the region. Consumers might experience lower prices and goods and services, which will stimulate aggregate demand. Any other answer that is relevant and correct is accepted for 2 marks. Remember, in this part, you answer in full sentences, not just listing. And then briefly explain the importance of industrial development. Why is industrial development important? Now you need to know objective first for you to answer. Exposes the world economy to trade and acquire knowledge, maintain macroeconomic stability, achieve high rates of savings and investment, establishes large-scale manufacturing, agricultural, mining, and service production. Diversification of the economy. So it leads to the economic diversity. We continue. Develop domestic manufacturing capacity to increase exports. It creates jobs and improves standard of living in neglected areas. Develops and maintains appropriate incentive to attract investors, and contribute to the industrial development of of African continent. That is for 8 marks. Our summary. So special development initiatives focus on improving the standard of living in areas that are neglected. Remember, that's SDI. Special economic zone can be located anywhere, while industrial economic zones, industrial development zones are only nearby what we call seaports and airports. So these industrial development zones, IDZs, this one, are only located nearby seaports and airports. Corridors are important because they connect cities, provinces, and countries to allow the distribution of goods and services. Incentive play a major role. They play a major role in encouraging industrial development in South Africa. Then our next lesson is on the 15th of August 2025, time 14:30 up to 16 hours. We will be doing economic and social indicators. Those are 2 essays for your economic pursuits. I, Mr. Mhlongo, thank you, and I wish you all the best as you prepare for your preparatory examination.